So folks, here's the thing. Nobody wants to be estranged from their family. So this morning, I read an interesting article about whether cutting off your family is good therapy. And even as I read it, I knew it would not end well. Some of you, not a lot, but some of you watching this video have gone no contact with your family of origin. Some of you have not. And every encounter you continue to have with your family is abusive and invalidating. And for a range of reasons, you may feel like you can't go no contact. And those of you who do not perceive an issue with your families, or actually come from healthy families, are probably not watching this video. So to those of you who went no contact, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. Was that an easy decision? Did you just go no contact after one argument? Did you go no contact because your family did one thing that hurt your feelings? Did you go no contact just because your parent didn't agree with you? My guess is no, you didn't. You went no contact because of an endless accumulation of wounds, hurts, invalidations, and in some cases, frank abuse and trauma that would be re-experienced every time you were with the narcissistic parent or family system. And ultimately, it became a choice between your identity and mental health and well-being and life, and continuing to see through some kind of obligation or guilt or sense that only people in really bad situations go no contact. To those of you who have not gone no contact, but keep enduring the same abusive patterns, I know the reasons that people stay in these family systems. Some people maintain contact because they feel guilt, obligation, doubt their own perception of the situation, and wonder if maybe they're reading it wrong, or they're being unfair, or they're making too big a deal out of it. Some of you stay in contact with a family because you have financial ties to a family, or because you are interlinked into a family system in which maybe you have children whom you want them to have a relationship with grandparents or extended family, but you still wonder if your parent will do to your kids what they did to you. Some of you have parents who threaten to harm themselves or even harm your other parent if you don't show up, and you can't keep calling 911, so it's just easier to show up. Some of you are still trauma bonded and think that it can still change. Some of you are afraid of the shame and the idea of any kind of no contact, or the idea of estrangement and the shame that estrangement brings up for you, which is incredibly understandable. Some of you would go no contact if you could, and have fantasies of what your life would be like if you did not ever have to deal with your parents again. Unfortunately, the article I read was not as balanced as it could have been, and it sort of simply wrote off the painful decision around estrangement or no contact as almost sort of like an easy way to not have to deal with the family anymore, which I believe missed the point. And then, of course, they interviewed old guard therapists who think it's just so terrible that any therapist would ever encourage a client to go no contact. And by the way, therapists don't encourage no contact. Good therapists understand it and support a client in the client's own decision making. As therapists, we're not supposed to have an agenda, but we're also human beings. And we can witness what having ongoing contact is doing to our clients. Any therapist who's able to remain neutral at witnessing a client be reharmed every single time they have contact with an abusive parent may want to go empathy shop. If it was as simple as don't have an agenda therapist, then AI is coming for my job really soon, which I think frankly it already is. But of course, the pièce de résistance in these articles is the comment section. And here's where that article got really interesting. Most of the commenters were teed up to shame the folks who were estranged from their families and went after the therapists who supported the decision. They'd say things like, family is great, you need family, go family. Being an adult is about compromise. These darn kids who just go no contact did that because their parent didn't give them their way. My guess is that a fair proportion of these commenters are the parents that the kids went no contact with, or just the really judgmental chorus of voices that shames anyone who has had to disengage from or distance from a family. The tricky thing with family is that family is about luck, like lots of things in life, but nowhere else is that luck more manifest than family. Some people get really, really lucky. They're born to loving, present, kind, well-regulated, patient people who listen. It doesn't matter if there's money or resource or not. I mean, money helps, but I've known folks raised in families where there were few resources, but there were lovely parents and other adults, and it was an inheritance like no other. And damn, the folks who grew up with resources and have really nice people, I mean, that's Powerball level luck shit. And some kids are born to narcissistic or alcoholic or mean or manipulative or deceitful parents who had no place having kids. These are dysregulated, cruel, withholding, abandoning, put their own needs before their child's needs people. That's just bad luck. The child is not responsible for their parents' lack of qualification or capacity to be a parent. It's bad luck. So when folks take the anti-estrangement, you must stay in contact, you only have one family stance, they're basically saying, play the bad hand you were dealt, no matter the harm it does to you, to which I say, F that. Encountering a narcissistic or toxic or harmful relationship in childhood is very different than if it happens to you for the first time in adulthood. And as a result, things that are done to us in adulthood, for example, what we may encounter in a relationship with an intimate partner or a friend, may not do the same level of scathing harm that it does in childhood. The silent treatment, the withholding, that stuff in childhood is lethal. It terrifies the child who is genuinely afraid that the parents will go away and metaphorically and literally disappear. So the child will do anything to end that silent treatment and slowly then get subjugated into a cycle of being that parent's narcissistic supply, emotional babysitter, tool of regulation, and being the parent's parent. How is that forgivable? All of this shapes the child's identity and frankly thwarts the child's identity that now gets shaped solely around the idea that I have to be what my parent wants so I can be loved, and then ultimately sets a person up for a lifetime of subjugated relationships if the cycle doesn't get broken. And folks, as you know too well, this is not an easy cycle to break. And parents are like kryptonite. You may actually be functioning well in other areas of your life, like work and friends, but then having to see that parent again can lead you to feel like that subjugated and scared child again. And that parent is not going to change. So for some folks, no contact or avoiding contact is the only path forward. Even in the article, there were parents interviewed who felt oh so sad about how much of their adult children's lives that they were missing, graduations and weddings and grandkids, and a small acknowledgement like, yeah, I was an alcoholic, and yeah, I screamed a lot and made the house a scary place, but that was then. Can't they see that I'm trying? It's not a child's job to see that you're trying, whether that child is a child or an adult. That parent has to recognize that we get one chance at childhood, and the harms that are done at that time, while to some degree are fixable, those fixes aren't easy. And even with the fixes, those wounds don't ever go fully away. So the adult parent still makes it about themselves. Oh, I'm missing out on so much, and sure, I did a few bad things, rather than my behavior must have been terrifying for a child, and it wasn't okay. Making amends doesn't mean the other person has to accept them. And even the most skilled apology does not carry with it the requirement that the other person has to take it and clean the slate. Perhaps the only way to move forward is to recognize the slate will forever remain messy, and then backing that up with radical acceptance. All of that means that your parent likely will always remain locked into these patterns. Choose accordingly. Many people who are estranged struggle until the end of their parents' lives and beyond. Should I have gone to visit? And then, for those who do go visit, will say, "Oy, that was a mistake." There are no winners in this. For some folks, the only way to maintain a healthy adult life is to go no contact. And given what we know about any kind of antagonistic or toxic personality style, that makes sense. The parent is not likely to change, and the subjugation cycle will then shift to how selfish and unforgiving that you are, that you can't just let go of the past, Junior, and they were just not ready to be a parent, etc., etc. You know the drill. Listen, I can say this as a therapist. I have worked with many, many clients where in my heart, my hope was that they would go no contact, because I could see how devastated they were every time they had contact with their parents or their family of origin. And they were living their lives in a psychological purgatory with parents who had no capacity for insight. But it wasn't my place to say go no contact. My role was to support their decisions and shore them up for the inevitable disappointment and help them connect the dots. I have also had clients go no contact and doubt that decision every single day. And every so often, there was a client who went no contact and blossomed, and they saw that the going no contact is what contributed to their growth. There is one more twist here, and that is if you are a parent who is disengaging from a toxic, narcissistic, manipulative, antagonistic child, it raises similar issues. Now, if the parent who's disengaging is antagonistic and the child is antagonistic, then all bets are off, and I just hope that nobody really gets hurt. But if the parent who's choosing to disengage is not antagonistic, or perhaps one parent was and the other parent was not, and the non-antagonistic parent is the one who's choosing to disengage, the damage is done where the child's concerned. Some parents, after years of being financially abused, lied to, taken advantage of, raged at by their child, will come to this decision as well. Again, it's not easy and even more complex, because a parent making this decision may also reflect back onto what was their contribution on their own child's behavior. Estrangement is like a train depot with lots of lines coming in and out. There's no simple pathway to this. So no, TikTok or YouTube or the internet is not what is leading people to become estranged from their toxic, harmful, invalidating families of origin. It's the family's behavior that's leading to that. Everybody wants to belong to a family system, and nobody gives it up lightly. But for the first time ever, we're having deeper conversations about what the meaning of going no contact from a harmful family system is, the grief around it, but also understanding that in some cases, some people actually find solace in it, and that instead of shaming people who make an incredibly difficult decision, perhaps we all need to pause a moment and really hear their story. Thanks again.